I am continuing my reading. What I'm doing in this series is to read through the entire standard works of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. This consists of the Bible, the Book of Mormon, the Doctrine and Covenants, and the Pearl of Great Price. I am reading in a chronological order of events, not according to publication or volume, so I will be skipping around a bit as I move along. So now we continue to read a little bit more in Mosiah. In our last chapter, last few videos, we read about Abinadi's preaching to the people, Alma's conversion, then Abinadi is burnt to death. Alma begins preaching in secret, has many converts, king sees a movement, hunts them down, and they flee into the wilderness. That's where we ended it off. So we pick this up in chapter 19. Gideon seeks to slay King Noah. The Lamanites invade the land. King Noah suffers death by fire. Limhi rules as a tributary monarch. And it came to pass that the army of the king returned, having searched in vain for the people of the Lord. And now, behold, the forces of the king were small, having been reduced, and there began to be a division among the remainder of the people. And the lesser part began to breathe out threatenings against the king, and there began to be a great contention among them. And now there was a man among them whose name was Gideon. And he, being a strong man and an enemy to the king, therefore he drew his sword and swore in his wrath that he would slay the king. And it came to pass that he fought with the king. And when the king saw that he was about to overpower him, he fled and ran and got upon the tower which was near the temple. And Gideon pursued after him, and was about to get upon the tower and slay the king. And the king cast his eyes round about toward the land of Shemlon. And behold, the army of the Lamanites were within the borders of the land. And now the king cried out in the anguish of his soul, saying, Gideon, spare me, for the Lamanites are upon us, and they will destroy us. Yea, they will destroy my people. And now the king was not so much concerned about his people as he was about his own life. Nevertheless, Gideon did spare his life. And the king commanded the people that they should flee before the Lamanites, and he himself did go before them, and they did flee into the wilderness with their women and their children. And it came to pass that the Lamanites did pursue them, and did overtake them, and began to slay them. Now it came to pass that the king commanded them that all the men should leave their wives and their children, and flee before the Lamanites. Now there were many that would not leave them, but had rather stay and perish with them, and the rest left their wives and their children, and fled. And it came to pass that those who tarried with their wives and their children caused that their fair daughters should stand forth and plead with the Lamanites, that they should not slay them. And it came to pass that the Lamanites had compassion on them, for they were charmed with the beauty of their women. Therefore the Lamanites did spare their lives, and took them captives, and carried them back to the land of Nephi, and granted unto them that they might possess the land under the conditions that they would deliver up King Noah into the hands of the Lamanites, and deliver up their property, even 1/2 of all they possessed, 1/2 of their gold and of their silver, and all their precious things, and thus they should pay tribute to the king of the Lamanites from year to year. And now there was one of the sons of the king among those that were taken captive, whose name was Limhi. And now Limhi was desirous that his father should not be destroyed. Nevertheless Limhi was not ignorant of the iniquities of his father, he himself being a just man. And it came to pass that Gideon sent men into the wilderness secretly to search for the king and those that were with him. And it came to pass that they met the people in the wilderness, all save the king and his priests. Now they had sworn in their hearts that they would return to the land of Nephi, and if their wives and the children were slain, and also those that had tarried with them, that they would seek revenge, and also perish with them. And the king commanded them that they should not return, and they were angry with the king, and caused that he should suffer even unto death by fire. And they were about to take the priests also, and put them to death. And they fled before them. And it came to pass that they were about to return to the land of Nephi, and they met the men of Gideon. And the men of Gideon told them of all that had happened to their wives and their children, and that the Lamanites had granted unto them that they might possess the land by paying a tribute to the Lamanites of 1/2 of all they possessed. And the people told the men of Gideon that they had slain the king, and his priests had fled from them farther into the wilderness. And it came to pass that after they had ended the ceremony, that they returned to the land of Nephi, rejoicing because their wives and their children were not slain. And they told Gideon what they had done to the king. And it came to pass that the king of the Lamanites made an oath unto them that his people should not slay them. And also Limhi, being the son of the king, having the kingdom conferred upon him by the people, made an oath unto the king of the Lamanites that his people should pay tribute unto them, even 1/2 of all they possessed. And it came to pass that Limhi began to establish the kingdom and to establish peace among his people. And the king of the Lamanites set guards round about the land, that he might keep the people of Limhi in the land, that they might not depart into the wilderness. And he did support his guards out of the tribute which he did receive from the Nephites. And now King Limhi did have continual peace in his kingdom for the space of 2 years, that the Lamanites did not molest them, nor seek to destroy them. So after Alma flees, he says the army comes back. It's a small army. Noah has reduced the size of the army because he doesn't want to pay for it. It's an expense. It's something that isn't going to his own pleasure. And so he reduces the army. Now, Gideon is a great man. There's no indication here that Gideon was still part of the army. He might have been a soldier before Noah reduced the army. So he might be a retired soldier. We don't know. His background is not revealed to us. But this shows us one thing very clearly here. Noah had not turned all the people evil. Not all the people had turned to wickedness. There was a division among the people, but in general, the people simply submitted to the king because he was the authority. And most people will submit to authority until things get too extreme. When things get really bad, you get rebellions, and that's what happened here. They submitted to the king, 20% of everything. But once Noah was sending armies after the people, see, when they arrested Abinadi, that was one man. We can handle that. One man being arrested for being an agitator, we can let that go. But no, Noah was now hunting down a large group of people. And so the faction that was already there was already a division, there were already people that didn't like the king, that were agitators, that were speaking out against the king. When he goes after Alma, they rise up and say, we have had enough of this. And Gideon is one of those men. Now, I get the impression here that Gideon is not a lone actor. He's not going by himself against the king. He is the one who is targeting the king, and the faction that he's part of, the resistance, you might say, the rebellion, they're all there against the king, and Gideon is just the one that actually is fighting the king directly. He's the leader of this rebellion. And why does he let the king live? For no other reason than to, if the Lamanites are coming, they needed to unite together. And if he killed the king at that time, the rebellion that he was a part of would have destabilized the entire place. There would have been no chance standing up against the Lamanites. And so he spares the king, hoping that the king will act in the best interest of the people. And instead the king shows how evil he really is, and how much of a coward he is. He runs away, and eventually when the Lamanites catch up to him, he says, oh, leave the women and children behind, save yourselves. Some of the people do. And you notice that these are the people that were probably very loyal to the king. They were the ones that were led into their iniquities, that followed the king and everything he was doing. They follow the king and leave their family behind. But eventually they have a change of heart and they realize this is not right. And they want to go back and get their wives and to save their wives and children. And Noah and his priests showed just how evil they are. Not just cowardly, but downright evil. Because they try to stop the men from going back. They want to save themselves. They're free to. But they try to stop everybody else from going back. They don't want to give up their power. And so they try to stop the people. And the people, even those who were once loyal to them now, rise up. They kill the king. They try to kill the priests who escape. So just a few last notes here. We have Limhi, the son of the king. He is said to be a just man. He did not take part in his father's wickedness. I assume that he probably was alive when Zeniff was alive. He probably knew his grandfather. And the influence of his grandfather kept him just. Now, he was still loyal to his father, and he didn't turn against him, and he didn't want to see him killed, but he did not partake in the wickedness. And on a final note, very interesting that it says here, the people who killed Noah, after they get this, remember, Noah had a tax of 20%, the Lamanites are requiring a tribute of 50%, so they're definitely more oppressed under the Lamanites than they were under Noah. But then Gideon sends out his people to find King Noah. So the Lamanites want King Noah. That's part of the deal. We got to go find him. They meet the people who killed King Noah. They tell them all what happened. But it says, and when the ceremony was over. So verse 24. After they had ended the ceremony, that they returned to the land of Nephi. What's the ceremony? What are they doing here? And I think that this was, to a large extent, the people who killed King Noah, they knew that they were in the wrong. When they fled and left their wives and children, they knew that they had done something wrong. And when they meet the people of Gideon, they are surrendering themselves to the mercy of these men, saying, we were wrong, and we have come back to make right what we did. They confess their sins. They confess that they killed the king. That's another thing. And they are surrendering themselves to these people. And we have some kind of ceremony. Now, it could be just a meeting of people and they do a ceremony of friendship where they salute each other and they make a vow of friendship or something like that. We don't know what it is. I really am curious what this ceremony was. But my speculation is that they were surrendering themselves to the authorities for their crimes. They were turning themselves in, and they were doing it according to the law. It's very interesting, very short chapter really, but very interesting one. Now I'm going to actually go to the words of Mormon next briefly before we continue reading in Mosiah, but we are now going to jump around a lot in Mosiah. We're not going to be reading anything in order. Because now, remember, Alma has fled. And so let us read, we will read a little bit about Alma's people after we touch on the words of Mormon. So I will see you there, and ciao.